How's it going, guys? Glad to have you here. I have been promising this video for a while. That's right, it's finally time to talk about the underground FPV Nirvana. I am just getting ready to do what I hope to be the last mod that I do on this radio. I've got it kind of set up to just exactly how I like it. I might tweak with the springs a little bit in the future, but I want to go over the things I like, the things that I don't like, the things that you should do to your radio if you have this radio, and etc., etc. So, without further ado, let's dive right in. Number one is a kind of a gripe for me as a full-size Crossfire user. If you have the micro one that needs the full JR module, like it is a JR module essentially for the micro receiver, it needs this whole thing. Like, let me show you what I'm talking about. If you look at the radio, it will not sit flush. It sits on the Crossfire itself when you set it down. Now, if I take off the Crossfire, what you'll see is that these plastic pieces here are bolted on in addition. Now, without the Crossfire, it will sit kind of on those, kind of on the nubs right here. But if you take off the JR module, the whole radio sits nice and flush. You have a flip up antenna, but I got the cover on right now. We'll talk about the cover in a minute. What I want to do is to get rid of what this is, which is the JR module part of the Crossfire, because it's kind of unnecessary. Replace this big thing that makes the whole Crossfire sit far off the radio with these two little 3D printed pieces. Now, quick heads up, guys. I know that you're probably going to ask about these 3D printed pieces. You can find some similar things online. These files came from Warwick over at Underground FPV. He tells me they have plans to release this in the metal, just like all of the trim pieces on the Nirvana. So hit him up and tell him to get his act together and get those to market, because I want the nice pretty metal ones too. But the point is, he has asked me not to share the files for these around, so you can ask, but I'm not going to post them anywhere. And that's going to keep the Crossfire module itself sitting much more flush. It'll be direct soldered on. I'm going to direct solder it. Some people have used these pins or bought their own pins. If you want to go that route, have at it. What I want is just a straight cable going inside the radio, and then still be able to run this with a different module if needed. So the first thing I'm going to do is take off the old JR module stuff. Okay, this is my desk cam. So if you guys are gonna see what is happening on the desk, that's how it's gonna happen. Let's not nudge it. So one piece down. So now we have a nice flush radio. Before I start cracking open the radio and showing you guys just how I'm going to mod it, I went with a mod myself. I took out what were machine screws. I'm going to just put this under here because you'll be able to see it better. What were machine screws, I took out and replaced with 12 millimeter. These are 10 millimeter machine screws. This is a 12 millimeter M2 screw. I replaced those, I'll show you where, on the gimbals. And without having to replace the springs, I was able to get a tighter tension. I don't like my sticks very tight. I actually like them quite loose, but stock, this radio, they were way too loose. I had to tighten them up a little bit, and this feels about right to me. The throttle tension strap, I might do a little bit of tweaking with that while I've got the radio open today, but for the most part, I think I'm really happy with it. Yeah, I think I'm probably going to leave that. Now, the last big thing, if you notice, I got this piece of tape on the back of my radio. That's like one of my last failed attempts at fixing this problem. You're supposed to have to press both of these buttons and hold them down to turn on the radio. But the problem is with this radio in particular. I think I've been told it's fixed in the production runs. This one, if I so much as just touch this, watch. That was it. Oh, there it goes. See, I did not touch the power buttons. and it powered itself on. So that is a big problem for me. It has to do with these screws touching the circuit board on the inside. I'm going to show you where to add some isolation so that it should fix it if that's what is happening with your Nirvana. So I'm going to take care of that and this hardwired Crossfire mount. I'm just going to ramble while we're doing this. I have a jumper module to run in the Nirvana in case I ever want to use a FR Sky Tiny Whoop or dude, this sticky foam is not gonna be my friend. Check it. If you're not familiar, this is denatured alcohol, super handy for you know, solvents and getting rid of adhesives. I'm gonna just try to dabble a little bit. Like we got, so heads up, this side of the Crossfire module has a USB port. So I'm not going to use a lot. I'm going to put it to where that's on the downside, and I'm just going to do like a little drop or two right where the sticky tape meets. See, it's wait, that canister is not very full. There we go. I'm just kind of wetting the driver that I've been using to ply, so that now not only is it kind of plying, but it's also dripping a little bit of the alcohol in there, kind of try to break the adhesive side. Oh hey, all right. Pow! Perfect. And it's off. Another thing that I've been told is that if you replace the SD card with a better performing SD card, that it speeds up the interactions on the screen. I'm going to do that as well. Now, we're going to start taking apart the radio, but we're not going to get too far ahead of ourselves. The lanyard attachment, the one that is being so, part of what is being so troublesome to me, take out the screws for that guy. Now, just to be real clear, I am not doing anything all that fancy at the moment. I'm just copying the contents of the SD card from the slow card that comes in the radio stock to a faster, higher performance card. Nothing crazy, not like a GoPro card, but just a middle ground card I got laying around.
Dang, buddy, look at them switches.
All right, seems good. Now we have a high performance card. Now, the other reason that you have to take this off is if you want to update the firmware, which is something that we're going to be doing right now. So, inside the holes where you take out the lanyard attachment, right? The very top one, right here, that one. Inside of it is a button. That is the, basically like the boot mode button, right? So what you got to do is go to undergroundfpv.com, whatever, I'll put a website in the description, and I have a USB cable. I find it easier to be pressing the button on the back of it, which you're going to have to do. I got the cable on the radio side plugged in. It's not powered on. On this end, I'm going to hold this handy while it's basically like binding your receiver. You gotta hold the button on the radio, plug it in at the same time that you have the software from Underground FPV, the NV14 updater. It is sitting here waiting, looking for a radio. So I'm gonna hold the button down and plug in the cable, the USB cable at the same time. Boom, connected. Checking for updates, downloading the updates, perfect. Okay, so once that's updated, we're gonna crack the radio open, and I have this cable. This I purchased this online. I got it from the Flight Test store. It is the Spectrum cable for the Crossfire module because I need the connectors to go to hardwire it. Now, the Spectrum cable comes with everything except for this one white wire. I'm going to just hold that up here so you can kind of see. I guess, I don't know the details of how Spectrum talks to the Crossfire module. I just know that I needed all three for the RC input and only two for the expansion port. input, right? So 2 that go in there and 3 that go into here. So I just stole one of the cables from the rest of the harness box that I have on from my Crossfire. That's right, I still have the packaging and all of the original wires that came with the Crossfire over 2 years ago. God, it's been so long. Point is, this is the cable that you need. Link in the description of where you can buy it. All right, also, while this is flashing, I'm just going to keep talking about some of the things that I like and dislike about this radio. One of my favorite things about this radio, what pushed me over the edge to adopting it as my full-time radio, is this cover right here. As you know, I travel a lot. I have a Betaflight bag, which does a pretty good job of protecting the radio, but sometimes when you're on an airplane, your bags just get beat around. And I broke off the arming switch for my QX7. And it either had to remap the arming switch or just switch to the Nirvana, which I had sitting in my car that day. And I switched to the Nirvana. When I put it in my bag now, I put the little cover on that protects all the switches and the gimbals, and I don't worry about it anymore. That's a huge peace of mind to me, and one of the things that I really like about the radio. My Nirvana is finished updating. It comes to you in emergency mode, and the updater says please restart your unit, remove the batteries if necessary. So I'm going to unplug here. Let's try powering it down. It reads like it's powering down, but if I remember right, last time I did this I had to do it again. Nope, it powered down, powered right back up. Ooh, and seems like the audio files were left alone. Yay! Okay, so everything seems to be working just fine. Let's see if they... One of the things that I had issues with before was I couldn't go, and I still can't go to the right of that XF to delete that on any of my models. Point here. Oh, would you look at that? I can correct that. Okay, but the point is I can fix it. I have heard that the user interface for this is a little bit more responsive, a little bit easier to deal with. I honestly wasn't complaining about, ooh, we got Lewis scripts now too. It has native Crossfire control, which is not, my Crossfire isn't plugged in, that's why I'm not gonna go through that. So now that I've flashed the firmware, it's time to power this guy down and start taking her apart. Now the first thing you want to do is to remove the batteries before you ever take, it doesn't matter what your radio is, whether it is a Tyrannus, a Nirvana, a Spectrum. If you're going to take it apart, take the battery out. You don't want to cause any damage while you're in there. All right. Now, I've had this guy apart a couple of times. As I said, I replaced the screws that set the spring tension so that I could get a little bit tighter spring tension. Now, let's talk about the screws that we have to take out. We already took off the lanyard thing, which is required. There are 4 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Those 4 screws have to come out. The 2 little screws in the bottom that you see there, those 2 little screws also have to come out. And then we have to take off these grippy things, the textured rubber stuff. There are 2 screws underneath that. So let me see if I can, what I'm going to do is to protect my switches and everything, I am just going to use the cover to work on it on the desk here. Now these are just machine screws. Be very careful when you are putting these back in that you don't strip the plastic, because they will strip it. You don't want to just crank it down. You want to tighten it to where there's no play and then just leave it. So be real careful about that. There are screws inside of here. You can peel these out and take those off. Now you can replace these metal grips with 3D printed pieces that will change how you hold your radio. They have ones that they recommend for pinchers, ones that they recommend for thumb guys. I had a set of the thumb flyers ones put together, printed for me, and you know, I kind of liked where it was headed, but at the end of the day, I'm comfortable enough with it where the grips are, and I like how they look and how they function better than the 3D printed piece. So I just went with that. All right, so we got those 4 screws out. Now, this one is a smaller, I don't think it's M2. Let me just check. That is a 1.5 millimeter Allen key. So that's all of those. But now, like I said, we got to get underneath the grip. In order to get the grips off, you need to remove the cover plate here. So once you get a corner, just kind of start working your finger around. You'll feel, if it's fighting you, don't try to rip it out. It kind of just comes apart just like so. And you got the grip off. And you can see that there is one more bolt under each one of the grips. Switch protector, gimbal protector back on. And go to the last 2 bolts. All right, and with that, we have removed all of the bolts that are required to remove in order to take this guy apart. I think I'm gonna have to go find a towel. It will start to come apart right now. The place that you want to begin pulling it apart is this upper lip here. Be aware, guys, that you want to protect the gimbals and the switches whenever you're working on your radio, regardless of what radio it is. And so if you're gonna lay it face down, give yourself some protection here. I can't use the switch guard because it grips right here where we're gonna pry it apart. Oh, wait a minute, I still have 2 bolts at the top. No wonder it's not coming apart. Oh my God, okay. Heads up, I miscounted the bolts. We also have these 2 at the top. So we have 2 at the very top. We have 2, 4, 6, 8 major bolts, plus the 2 at the bottom, plus the lanyard bolts. Okay. It ought to come a little bit easier. There we go. You see, it just popped right up. We have just a little bit of separation. You don't need a ton, and I don't need the screwdriver anymore. You can see the whole thing is just kind of coming apart. Now be real gentle as you do this step here. Like I said, there are still connectors on the inside that we haven't taken apart yet. All right, so we have it open. 2 connectors. If you can see in there, we have the antenna connector that's on a UFL, and we have a ribbon connector. So I'm just going to gently unplug the UFL. Don't pry too much because you don't want to push on all of these circuits. I tried my best to just kind of pull it loosely. And the other connector is this ribbon connector. And to get that guy, I'm just going to pop the little black piece. And guys, honestly, disconnecting these 2 is easy. Putting it back together is a little bit trickier. Okay. So now that I have the radio apart, let me get you guys one nice shot on that camera. Whew. What we're gonna end up doing, remember the top hole has the boot button, which is right here. On this one, I'm just gonna put some double-sided sticky tape so that it can't touch the circuit board, and everything should be fine from then on out. Double-sided sticky tape here, scissors, just a little snip, snip. Looks good to me. One of the things that I like to do, guys, is especially when I'm using double-sided sticky tape to isolate something, I'll leave that red layer on. The only thing that I'm doing is I put a piece of double-sided sticky tape right there where the bottom bolt, so it can't touch the circuit board, where it's basically touching it right here and causing it to power on when you're not pressing the power button. Super easy, super simple, and done. So I had a vague idea of what I'm gonna do going in. Let me just show you guys. This is the front of the radio, and I don't need it. So now we have the back of the radio. A lot of things going on in the back. We got some switches up top. We got this circuit on the back where the ribbon cable that we can disconnect it is. We also have this antenna harness, right, with the connector. So, and the female pins as well as the connectors for the JR module. My plan is to solder directly. I'm just going to show you on this one. My plan is to solder directly to these joints right here. And then to drill a hole to pass the cable through. I was thinking that if I drill it right here, that I could even hide the connectors when not in use inside of this guy. So we could pull them back to that point, right? So that they're just like barely out. Just drill a hole right here. Now I was thinking about adding a grommet or something, but I don't really have any kind of grommet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this antenna up, and I'm just going to go to town. All right, I'm using a 5/32 of an inch drill bit. It looks like that should be big enough, or just about big enough for all of the wires. Once I drill it, I'm gonna grab a file and file that nice and smooth so that it's not snagging on any of my wires. I may even line the hole with some electrical tape, a little bit more padding. I just wanna make sure that this is a permanent fix. I intend to basically always run this radio with the Crossfire on it. So let's just get to, yeah. Is where I want the access to be. And managed to keep pretty much all of the plastic shavings nice and free. What we have at the end of the day is 2 ground ports. I'm not sure if the Crossfire needs it, FR Sky needs it, or Spectrum needs it, or who needs it. Like one of these things, this is the pin that goes into the Spectrum, is jumpered. Like we don't need all of that. Probably don't need most of that. Well, that's a really weird wire extension going on right there. I know the focus probably is struggling. But the whole point is we don't need most of this stuff, so I'm just going to cut off everything. I'm going to cut this connector off. Chomp. All right. So, chomp that guy off and feed our wires through. And like I said, that hole is just barely big enough. So there we go. Now that is all that we're going to have on this side. If you look at where the Crossfire is going to sit at the base of this guy, basically, so the cables need to come to right here is all. So that's plenty of wire. Now let's see how we're doing on the other side. If we pull this up, okay, that's still plenty of wire. And I have plenty of room here. Let's talk about the wires that are included in here. This connector is going to go into the RC input, 3-pin, right? And we have ground, power, I believe that's going to go to 5 volt. I'm going to verify the wiring in a second, but this is what we have connectors on the side of the Crossfire. That is where the Crossfire is going to get its powers, from this ground and this power, and then we have the signal. That's going to be for the Crossfire. Now on the expansion port, we only have these 2 wires here, and it's another ground, but as you can see, they are wired to go in to a common ground. Let's just see how this is going to close on us. Oh, I love it so much. Sweet. Okay, so those are the 5 wires that we have to connect to these pins here. I have gone through extensive research to make sure that I wire this just perfect. I have consulted with both Mike Chen and Warwick from Underground FPV to ensure that I connect it just ever so perfectly correct. The JR module bay has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pins, right? 5 pins, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wires, but we're not using all of these. So the very top pin, top hole, is going to be for the PPM, or signal, which goes to the 3rd connector on the RC. Second one down is heartbeat. We are not using that. Third one down is the voltage. We will connect the red wire, and then we have the common ground, and then we have the last wire, the blue one, which is the pin 2 on the expansion port. I believe that's how it's getting telemetry back, and then we just have to solder those here. There we go. So like I was saying, signal to the top pin, skip a pin, and we have power, our ground. I know it may be kind of hard to see what I'm doing here, guys, but I will get you a tight shot with a macro lens. once I am all completed, make sure that these wires kind of route around that connector. I know things are tight on the final assembly of the radio, so you don't want to have these wires ending up in your way. Dang. Okay, before I put that one on, I'm going to put the bottom pin on, because I'm basically covering up the access to solder that one with the way that I'm doing the double grounds and getting access to those wires. Alright. And last ground. Let me just flow a little bit of solder in here. Let's just verify with the multimeter that I did not short out the ground to that pin. Nope, nice and separate. So that is the hard part of the actual heart surgery. I'm actually not going to connect the Crossfire in to test it just yet, because I want to put the whole radio back together so that I can go and fly. Faceplate, lay it face down. The back plate that is now fully modded with protection so that we won't power it on by accident anymore, as well as a hardwired Crossfire connection. Now, the first thing that I'm going to connect is going to be this ribbon cable that's kind of a pain. Heads up, here's the ribbon cable. Make sure that you pull the little black piece all the way out of the ribbon connector on the other side. I'm going to try to do this in a way that you guys can see how I do it, but notice that I'm kind of clipping in the outside pieces of the radio together as I do this, so that it's basically ready to go back together. Now I have my needle nose pliers, and I'm just going to kind of get in here and insert the ribbon cable gently into the harness. Once it's in and I'm confident that it is good, I just push down on the little black connectors. Boom. Kind of crimp it into place there. Nice. And give it a little tug, make sure it's not going anywhere. That's good. Looks nice and even all the way across the board. Last bit of order before we seal the radio back up is to get the UFL connector for the antenna back on. It's always a bit tricky. I don't know if you guys can see that in the GoPro. I'm trying to get it in the GoPro as I connect it. I feel like the last time I ended up just using my finger. I'm like varying the width that the radio shell is open in order to like change just exactly where that antenna lead ends. There we go. And now it is nice and secure on there. I feel confident in that connection. No, feet in place. Cool. Snap, 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 snap. Everything seems to be in place now. Here we go. Ta-da!
Dang, buddy. Look at them switches.
Okay. I'm going to plug in Crossfire module. Go ahead and put on my antenna for the Crossfire. Powered on.
Dang, buddy. Look at them switches.
Crossfire powered. Give it a second to fully boot up. RC input. CRSF V2. It recognizes the Crossfire. We are talking. It's just connected, not through the pins here, but right in through my radio hardwire. All I have left to do is to put the screws back in that are holding the Crossfire in place, replace the former JR module thing with this simple Crossfire clip. I'm going to screw everything back together real quick. For the grips, all I got to do is kind of just line it up and start pushing those corners in where it was locked before. It will find its way in, and just kind of squeeze it in all the way around. Just push all the corners in nice and flush. Now, the last thing that I have to do is instead of installing these connectors, which is what I did have, the full JR module pieces, I'm going to install just my 3D printed pieces. This isn't TPU, this is, I guess, ABS that my prints are in. So it's not really malleable. I don't want to crank it down too hard. If I do crank it too hard, then it's just gonna break. Now notice that it's got a little bit of play left and right too. So I'm not gonna tighten it fully down until I see just how it fits with the Crossfire module. All right, so before I fully tighten these down, okay. So it's got a little bit of room. Sits up nice and high. I like how that sits. Okay, so I'm just gonna pull it out and tighten these down. Pop. Pop. All right, Crossfire mod complete. Check it out. Nice and flush mod on the Crossfire. Let's see how it sits. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, it still sits on the 3D printed parts, but now it's not sitting on the heatsink for the Crossfire. It's actually sitting on the 3D printed parts. So that alone is an improvement in my book. I like that everything's a little bit more svelte. Let's see, can I get it to power up without touching the power buttons? No more accidental power-ups. Thank God. That was the most annoying thing more than anything else, was the fact that I couldn't reliably know that the radio was turned off as I'm putting everything away. I just can't trigger it again. Thank goodness. All right, let's see how it powers up normally. The power buttons are just a little bit finicky. My finger rolled off of it. Powers up just normally. Yay. Everything looks good. Crossfire. Dude, that is a much, much slicker install. I'm digging it. Much less standoff thing on the back. I feel like it could get a little bit lower profile. I might try to, because this one is done with the intention that you use those flat pins and it fits the thing right here. I might do another one that's even more low profile to where it sits on these stands. But for now, I am happy. I got to throw this in my bag, swap a receiver in one of my quads so that it's not crashing into people's cars anymore. And then I'm going to go fly. We're going to go fly right now. Let's go. Let's go. I could have used that today while I was doing heart surgery on my radio. Sure. Oh yeah, there's a pond. No, not quite, but almost. Oh no. Alright, that was a fun little rip. I just wanted to show you guys the Nirvana in action. I've been loving this radio, but I want to just talk to you for a minute. Now, does it fly? It flies the same as it did before the Crossfire mod. I will say one thing that was unexpected from the upgrade was the fact that when you suck that extra weight from being way down here up into the radio, like the whole thing, it has about the same heft to it, but it just feels more dense now. Anyways, I'm liking that mod, but I want to talk about my overall impressions. I know this video's already been like obnoxiously long, but if you're watching it at this point, it's because you really care about this radio and you probably like to hear what I think about it. So, opinions. It took me a while to get used to it. One of the first things that I did was upgrade the stick ends. I love these Lotus things, and somebody was asking me which size of stick end it has. It has that size. I don't know what it is. It's not the same size as the M7 or M9 gimbals. I don't know which those are. It's smaller than that. I had to order it. If it had been the same size as like M9s or M7s, I would have had a bunch laying around. I love those stick ends. One of the big differences that you'll notice if you're switching to this radio from another one is going to be the throws. It has, I believe it's a 45-degree throw, and then a Tyrannus is 60. Don't quote me on that. What I do know for a fact is that it is a smaller angle of deflection for the sticks than it is on a Tyrannus. And that was a big thing to get used to for me because I had to be a lot more precise. So when I first got this radio, the firmware was a work in progress. I was still able to fly it, but I wasn't used to the shorter stick throws, and there were a lot of bugs left in the firmware, and so I kind of put it on the back shelf, kept flying the QX7, but I used this radio on the quad camp live streams and on simulators a lot in order to get used to the shorter throws. So then when the switch broke on my QX7 and I had this guy with me, it was a no-brainer to swap to it. The firmware had gotten a lot more stable, a lot more features. With this latest update, it's even better, and I want to do some videos on the software and how I program my Nirvana, but those are coming. This one's already obnoxiously long. I love the shorter throws now. I'm able to be even more precise. I'm trying to wrap my head around it, but I've been feeling like I can fly more precise and more in control with the shorter throws than I could with the longer ones. And that goes counterintuitive to like everything that I know, but I just know it's how I feel. All of the switches are in good places. I will say this is one complaint with like a Tyrannus. If I wanted to have a momentary switch in a different position or a 3 position versus a 2 position, it's fairly easy to switch out individual switches and move them around where you want. This radio, for instance, has, you know, a momentary here, 2 position here, 3 position, 2 there, 3 there, and you can't actually move those around because of how they're mounted on little PCBs. Now, maybe you can, but it's definitely going to be more work than it is with the Tyrannus. The touchscreen operation, it works good. Honestly, I don't think that it's all that much better than the navigation on a Tyrannus because, let's face it, you usually set these radios up once, maybe change something every couple of months, and then that's it. For the most part, you turn it on, you go fly, and that's it. You just go fly and turn it off. That is going to pretty much wrap it up for the Nirvana. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, click that like button, turn on the notifications. If you aren't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. I got a lot more content coming. I'm finally going to be, I know I've had these for a minute and I feel bad, but I got Unify Evos that I'm going to be putting in all my quads today, probably right after this, because apparently my power supply is dead and I can't go fly. Stay tuned because I've always got new things coming and it's always a great time having you guys here.